Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'll be talking about the Mountains Men and how it's such a treat to paint them. So we're going to be starting off with the metal, which is just two of the really major pieces of these models. So for that I'm just using a P3's pig iron, and I'm just basically coating it on the swords, although different armor plates and chainmail. Just find all those spots and just paint them on. You can always work on it later, but I just like picking them all out. Then you're going to add in all the different colors, and so the reason it's so easy is because that's almost all the work you have to do, is just finding a variety of brown tones. And you can see in this image how there's so many different colors for the different cloaks and gambesons and leathers, and you can see with these set of guys, they have a bunch of different colors for their bags, for the different armor plates, and you can actually make some of the cloaks similar to the ones that some of the major houses have, and you can imagine they kind of stole it off some dead soldiers. So that's a interesting way to kind of play with the lore and how they're kind of pillagers and thieves. And then when you are all finished with that, you could add a base coat for the skin. And essentially what that would do would be just to make sure you pick out those details, so you're aware of where different pieces end and where the skin begins. And once you did all those different steps, you can just put a wash all over it. So I like to use Army Painter's dark tone, and I just put that all over the cloaks, and that gives them a very deep, dark, kind of rugged feel. And that goes basically on all the parts that aren't the armor, and then I do a dark tone for those pieces of the armor. Just make sure to kind of maneuver the wash around, and you can kind of create natural highlights using it, so that way you don't really have to do too much work after. But I decided that I would shake up some paint, and this is somewhat of a brighter, a more silvery tone than an iron tone. Make sure you shake all your paints really well like this, and then you just kind of overbrush / dry brush it on those raised areas to bring out that extra amount of highlight. Then when you're done with that, you can go on to completing the face, and I've shown that before of increasing the highlights over time, giving it that bright, natural shift of colors. Then you go on to the eyes, and you can see in this segment that it's just very carefully picking out those shapes they've sculpted on for you, and then dotting it with a little bit of like grayish or black or dark brown, something like that. And you just take the fine point and you kind of just find where you want it and build it up until you get that nice natural eye shape. Now, once that's done and you have all your washes, you can go back and do a bit of highlighting. But then it comes to kind of making them more rugged and bloody. I really, really recommend getting some kind of sponge. So when you're stippling all the details and the dirt and the mud on these guys, you want to use a sponge like this. So you can see this is a very fine texture. So when you add it on, it gives very, very nice, sharp, and kind of mixed points. And so what you can do is kind of get it, kind of tap it into your paint, and then just tap it on a piece of paper, and that will show you what the result is actually going to look like on the soldier. But of course, you want to tap it off just so instead of giving globs, you actually give that texture you want. I found that it doesn't really work the same with paint brushes. Trying to create that kind of muddy blood splatter texture with paintbrushes is just not the same. This is just such a useful tool, and you can find it just for a few bucks. You know, it's really not expensive, and if you want that beautiful extra kind of mud splatter touch and blood splatter, just get one of these because this is so useful. And then when you're done with it and you want to get the paint out, you just soak it in water and kind of just keep squeezing out all the paint until you're left with this, so it can stay nice and clean, and so you can use it again for the next set. And this is just such a useful tool, and I cannot recommend this enough. For the actual banner itself, that's just a simple matter of building up that yellow tone. The issue with yellow is that sometimes it's hard to make it show through, so you want to be able to just kind of build it up over layers, and that's really the technique you have to use to be able to create something that looks strong. And if you just add a really thick layer, you're going to see it's going to be so obvious how apparent your brush marks are. You want to make sure it's thin, so when you get that built up texture, it's very smooth, and you get the texture of the flag and what's sculpted on. not what you're adding. Now, you see me take the flat of the brush. Well, not the flat. Now you see me take kind of the long side and kind of move it parallel. And all what that allows me to do is just really carefully pick out those House Clegane hounds. Instead of getting paint on the flag and on that yellow you work so hard to build up, you're just carefully bringing it out. And I just use like a darker brown tone. And I was very happy with kind of how it turned out. You have that nice contrast of the yellow and that dark color. It really pops out, for me at least. And then for those last touches, there's these little studs here, so I just added a little bit of metal to that. And then metal on the fist up top, and then did a wash. And then you can go back, add more washes, add more highlights, and kind of play with it until you're satisfied. And don't forget, and be a good boy, and make sure you base these, okay? Alrighty, well, that wraps it up. You can see how simple it was. Overall, it was just paint on the metallic metal, paint on all these different browns and grays and yellows and reds on the various parts, then paint the skin, get the hair coat done, and then just wash all of it down. And then, of course, do those last few finishing touches if you want with the sponges and like, you know, you can add you know, a little bit of spray with a paintbrush as well. But such a beautiful tool. Don't kiss it. I think that there might be weird stuff in it. Don't kiss it. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up. I really was pleased painting these. It was such an easy and rewarding thing, and you just get so many colors just by being creative and kind of mixing up the tones. And it really is like a nice break from that standard stark gray, Lannister red, stark gray, Lannister red. So it's really fun to kind of do something quite a bit different and kind of just say, you know, I'm going to play with these colors. Anyway, that's it for me. Next up will be the mountain to come with these mountain men, and I was really happy how it turned out. So in 2 weeks, I'll you can pop by for that one. And I'd say that about wraps it up. So cheerio.